If you live to be 80 years old, you get about 4,000 weeks on Earth.
Yeah. It's really not a lot when you say it out loud.
No, it's terrifying. Let that sink in for a second for everyone listening. 4,000 weeks, it's not just a small number, it's a terrifyingly brief window of existence.
Right. Yeah.
And when you actually internalize that, it makes you realize that almost everything we've been taught about time management is just wrong. I mean, the endless pursuit of inbox zero, the hyper-optimized morning routines, the whole relentless hustle culture.
It's exhausting.
Exactly, it's exhausting. But it isn't just exhausting, it's an actual psychological trap. So today, we are dismantling that trap. We're doing a deep dive into the philosophy of Oliver Burkeman's book, 4,000 Weeks.
It's such an important source to dig into.
It really is. And our mission today is to figure out how to stop fighting time and start building a saner, a more meaningful relationship with the incredibly short life we have.
Because it really is a paradigm-shifting way to look at reality. To understand why we are all so burnt out, we have to look at the overarching psychology that's driving us.
Right.
We spend our entire lives trying to master time. We try to optimize it, control it, squeeze every single drop of efficiency out of it. And we do this to avoid the deeply uncomfortable reality of our finitude.
Because facing that finitude is scary.
Oh, it's terrifying. By convincing ourselves that if we just find the right productivity hack or the right app, we can eventually get everything done. It's a delusion we create.
So we never have to face the hard truth that we are limited.
Exactly. We hide from the fact that time is always running out.
But that shift from viewing time as life itself to viewing time as a problem to be solved that didn't happen overnight, did it?
No, not at all.
To see how we got into this mess, the sources point out that we have to look at how human beings historically experienced time, like a medieval peasant, for example.
Right, the fluid time concept.
Yeah, fluid time. The cows were milked when they needed milking. The crops were harvested when the season dictated. Time wasn't this separate entity looking over their shoulder with a stopwatch.
You couldn't save time any more than you could save a river from flowing.
Exactly. And you couldn't waste it either. You just existed in it.
But you can actually trace the exact historical moment we lost that fluid relationship. It was the Industrial Revolution.
Because of the clock.
Because of the clock and the factory. Once factory labor became the norm, time suddenly became an abstract commodity, became a resource to be exploited, bought, and sold by the hour, just like coal or iron.
And the moment time becomes a resource, human psychology it completely shifts.
Yes, you suddenly feel this immense, crushing pressure to use every single minute efficiently.
I've always pictured modern productivity like a rigged conveyor belt. You have all these boxes coming at you, right? Emails, errands, projects.
Oh, I know that feeling.
And you think, if I just upgrade my skills and clear these boxes off the belt faster, I'll eventually get a break. I'll reach the end. And I have to admit, I fall for this constantly.
We all do.
I tell myself every Thursday, if I just put my head down, clear my inbox, get everything done by Friday afternoon, I can finally relax this weekend. Are you saying that instinct is actually causing the problem?
That instinct is the absolute core of what Burkeman calls the efficiency trap. It's based on an economic concept called induced demand.
Induced demand, like with highways.
Exactly like urban planning. When a city builds wider highways to reduce traffic congestion, it actually just encourages more people to drive.
Right, so the traffic ultimately stays exactly the same or it gets even worse.
Exactly. The same thing happens with your tasks. When you get faster at clearing the boxes off the conveyor belt, you don't get empty space. You just speed up the belt.
Because clearing the decks simply makes them fill up faster.
Precisely. The sources give a great example of this with email. When Burkeman became incredibly efficient at answering messages to hit inbox zero, he didn't suddenly have peaceful, empty days.
Let me guess. He just got more emails.
The only result was that he generated more emails. People got used to his rapid-fire replies, realized he was highly responsive, and just sent him even more messages. Efficiency just attracts more demands.
Wow.
And it goes beyond just doing more work. We try to eliminate friction in our personal lives through convenience culture, too.
Like apps that let us order groceries or hail a ride with one tap.
Right. But in removing all the friction and waiting from life, we accidentally strip away the texture and meaning of the experience itself.
So the lesson here is that you cannot win the game of efficiency. The deck is totally stacked against you.
It's an unwinnable game.
That means we have to systematically dismantle this when I finally mindset. You know exactly what I mean.
Oh, completely.
That little voice that says, when I finally get my workload under control, when I finally finish this house renovation, then I can relax and my real life will begin.
Which is a tragic way to live because real life is happening right now while you are waiting for the conveyor belt to stop.
Yeah.
The alternative mindset from the book is what we might call the limit-embracing life. You have to willingly accept defeat.
Accept defeat. That's tough for high achievers to hear.
It is, but it's necessary. You will never get everything done. Your inbox will never stay empty. Your to-do list will outlive you.
Which sounds depressing, but
But counterintuitively, that is incredibly liberating news. Once you accept that perfect control is impossible, you can stop punishing yourself for failing to achieve it.
and to actually practice that, the sources suggest adopting a fixed volume approach to your daily tasks.
Yes, the open and closed lists.
Right. Instead of one massive guilt-inducing list, you keep two. You have an open to-do list, which is essentially just a brain dump of absolutely everything you need to do.
Everything goes there.
But then you have a closed to-do list, which has a strict maximum of, say, 10 items. And the rule is you are forbidden from moving a new task from the open list to the closed list until one of those 10 items is completely finished.
It forces you to operate within the actual constraints of reality. You're physically capping the conveyor belt.
Which brings up a really vital reflective question for you listening to this. Are you holding yourself to and judging yourself by standards of productivity that are mathematically impossible to meet?
I think most of us are.
Yeah.
And if we accept that we can't do it all, it forces a really uncomfortable realization. We have to start consciously choosing what we're going to fail at.
Choosing what to fail at. Wow.
Yeah, and that dives right into the psychology of choice, procrastination, and distraction. We are dealing with existential overwhelm.
Because we live in a modern environment brimming with infinite possibilities.
Exactly. An illusion amplified by social media algorithms perfectly engineered to act like slot machines in our pockets. But we are stuck in a finite reality.
The German philosopher Martin Heidegger explored this, didn't he? Through a concept called being towards death.
He did. Now, that sounds incredibly bleak.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's actually about authenticity. Heidegger argued that to live a real grounded life, we have to keep our mortality in full view. Because we know time is running out, every choice we make has weight.
Right, because deciding to spend an hour reading a book means sacrificing an infinite number of other potential paths you could have taken in that hour.
Exactly. Every choice is a tiny death of other options.
I found the story about the author Franz Kafka in the sources to be a perfect, kind of tragic example of this.
Oh, the letters.
Yeah. Kafka was engaged to a woman named Felice Bauer, but he essentially kept their entire relationship confined to letters.
He never wanted to actually take the leap.
Right. He would write to her passionately, but he constantly avoided taking the actual step of marriage because he wanted the limitless fantasy of what their relationship could be without the messy, limiting, deeply flawed reality of an actual human marriage.
Making a real choice means closing doors. And Kafka couldn't bear to close them.
He was running from finitude.
He was. Which is the exact same mechanism driving our daily distractions. We tend to think of distraction as an external problem, right? Like our phones pinging or our tabs open on the browser.
We blame the tech.
But it's actually an internal urge to escape the discomfort of our limits. The text shares a brilliant story about a student named Steve Young.
Oh, the one who wanted to be a Japanese monk.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Part of his grueling training involved sitting in freezing, melted snow. At first, the physical pain was so intense that his brain tried to distract itself.
Naturally.
He tried to think about anything other than the freezing water, just to mentally escape the present moment.
Which is human nature. I mean, if I'm freezing, I'm going to daydream about a warm beach.
Right, but here is the profound insight from that experience. The more he tried to escape the discomfort mentally, the worse the physical suffering became. Yes, it was only when he surrendered and fully concentrated on the physical sensation of the cold, when he accepted the reality of his deeply uncomfortable present moment, that the suffering actually diminished.
Wow.
The distraction wasn't the cure for his pain. The desperate urge to escape the present moment was the suffering.
That is so profound. It tells us that missing out isn't a bug in the system. Missing out is exactly what makes our choices meaningful.
Exactly.
So the limiting belief we have to abandon is that procrastination is this terrible evil that must be eradicated. We really need to flip the script.
We do. We need to become good procrastinators through what the author calls strategic underachievement.
Strategic underachievement. I love that.
Since you can't do everything,
Yeah.
you must consciously decide in advance what you are going to intentionally neglect.
The sources outline a framework for this with 3 procrastination principles.
Let's hear them.
The first is to pay yourself first. If there's a project that truly matters to you, work on it first thing in the day, even if it's just for 20 minutes.
Because if you wait until all your other obligations are met,
There will never be leftover time.
never.
Second, limit your work in progress by serializing your projects. Force yourself to do one thing to completion before starting the next, even if it makes you anxious to leave other things untouched.
That's the distress tolerance kicking in.
Exactly. And third, resist the allure of middling priorities. You have to say no to the things that are just okay because those moderately interesting opportunities are actually the biggest threat to the things that truly matter.
It requires radical honesty, which raises the question for you, the listener. In what ways have you yet to accept the fact that you are who you are and not the limitless, perfectly optimized person you think you ought to be?
Okay, so we've tackled the present moment and daily tasks. But how does this apply to the future?
The future.
Because our obsession with optimizing time doesn't just ruin our workday, it completely ruins our ability to actually live our lives. We treat time purely as a means to an end.
We do. We are constantly living in an imagined near future, doing tasks today only for the payoff they might bring tomorrow. We instrumentalize our existence.
Meaning we view the present moment merely as a stepping stone to some future state of perfection.
Exactly. The meditation teacher, Joseph Goldstein, observed that we use plans like a lasso, desperately trying to wrangle the future under our control.
Like throwing a rope around something that doesn't even exist yet.
Right. But a plan is really just a present moment statement of intent. It guarantees nothing. Our anxiety about the future is ultimately just a demand for reassurance from a universe that is fundamentally unpredictable.
The sources refer to this as the causal catastrophe, and they apply it to how we view childhood, which I found deeply unsettling, but honestly, so true.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
We increasingly treat raising kids entirely as a training program for successful adulthood. We pack their schedules with enrichment activities and coding camps, viewing their childhood merely as preparation for a future resume.
We completely forget that they are living their actual primary lives right now.
It's heartbreaking when you frame it that way.
It is, and we do the exact same thing to ourselves with our leisure time.
Yeah.
Aristotle argued that true leisure philosophical contemplation, connection, simply existing, was the absolute highest virtue.
The end goal of life itself.
Yes. But modern culture has completely ruined rest. We only view rest as a tool to recharge our batteries so we can go back to being productive workers.
Right, if you aren't using your weekend to self-improve or train for a marathon or prep meals for Monday, you feel this gnawing guilt.
And that guilt is the conveyor belt calling you back.
Wow, yeah. The fundamental lesson here is a massive shift in perspective. You don't have time, you are time. We have to remove the toxic belief that an activity is only valuable if it produces a future result.
Instead, we need to embrace what philosophers call atelic activities.
Atelic, meaning no end goal.
Exactly. An atelic activity is something done entirely for its own sake, with no ultimate aim or finish line. Going for a hike just to experience the woods, not to burn a specific number of calories or reach a summit.
Or listening to music, playing a game with a child.
Just being. And to actually build this into your life, Burkeman suggests implementing a strict Sabbath. He uses the brilliant metaphor of the Shabbat elevator.
Oh, I found this fascinating.
Right. In some observant Jewish communities, elevators are programmed to automatically stop on every single floor during the Sabbath so people don't have to push buttons, which is considered work.
So they don't even have the option to do the work.
Precisely. The broader application for us is to intentionally design friction into your environment to completely prevent yourself from doing productive work during your leisure time.
Like locking your laptop in a drawer.
Or leaving your phone in another room. Make it physically difficult to be productive. So ask yourself, how would you spend your days differently if you didn't care so much about seeing your actions reach some future fruition?
But if we actually manage to abandon that rush to the future, we immediately slam into another problem, the uncomfortable slowness of reality.
Yes, stepping off the conveyor belt.
When we step off, we hit the impatience spiral. When we finally slow down, anxiety just hammers us.
Because when we slow down, we have to sit with ourselves. We feel like we aren't moving fast enough to outrun our flaws. Furthermore, we are culturally obsessed with having complete individual control over our schedules.
We think freedom means never having to coordinate with anyone else.
Which brings up the digital nomad paradox.
Yeah, if you ask almost anyone today what the ultimate dream is, it's having total sovereign control of your time. Working from your laptop on a beach in Bali, answering to no one.
But the sources point out that this often leads to profound loneliness.
Because time isn't just a resource, it's a network good.
Exactly. Think of a telephone network. Having the only telephone in the world is useless. The network derives its value from how many other people are synchronized with it.
So if you have total freedom in Bali, but all your friends and family back home are working Tuesday at 2 p.m.,
Your freedom is actually quite isolating.
the counterexample the sources use is the Swedish tradition of fika.
I love fika.
It's amazing. It's this daily moment where everyone in workplace drops their tools at the exact same time to have coffee and cake together. It's mandated coordination.
It proves that giving up your individual sovereignty over your schedule to synchronize with others actually builds community and deep meaning.
To fully participate in life, you have to surrender to the shared rhythms of life.
And we also have to surrender to the natural speed of reality, what the German philosophers call Eigenzeit.
Eigenzeit, the time inherent to a process itself.
Yes.
I feel the friction of Eigenzeit when I get irrationally angry that a microwave takes 2 minutes to heat something up or a website takes 4 seconds to load.
We've all been there.
I am demanding that reality conform to my rushed internal clock rather than accepting the time the process actually takes.
Harvard art history professor Jennifer Roberts has a fascinating way of forcing her students to confront Eigenzeit.
The painting assignment.
Yes. Her first assignment is to go to a local museum and stare at a single painting for 3 uninterrupted hours.
3 hours? I mean, most people don't look at a painting for 3 seconds.
That's exactly her point. The initial urge to move on is overwhelming. But she isn't just teaching art history. She is teaching distress tolerance.
By physically forcing them to stay put.
She forces them to survive the initial wave of impatience. And what happens is remarkable. Only after hours of surrendering to the slowness do they actually start to see the hidden details of the art.
Surrendering to the natural speed of reality is where true power lies. But doing that requires us to drop the immense arrogance that our lives and our daily to-do lists must be historically or universally significant.
Which brings us to one of the most liberating concepts in the entire book, cosmic insignificance therapy.
Cosmic insignificance therapy.
Yes. When you are feeling overwhelmed by your inbox or your career trajectory, mentally zoom out to the perspective of the cosmos. Look at human history. Look at the billions of stars.
On the grand scale of the universe, your struggles, your missed emails, your unachieved goals, they are indistinguishable from nothing at all.
Some people might hear that and feel depressed, but if you really let it sink in, it's profoundly liberating.
You are totally off the hook. The universe does not care if you hit inbox 0.
It relieves the pressure. Once you know your work doesn't have to save the world, you can practice radical incrementalism.
How does that work?
Well, if you want to write a book, don't try to clear your whole schedule to do it. Work on it in small, daily, fixed periods of maybe 45 minutes, and force yourself to stop when the timer goes off.
So you don't burn out.
Right. It builds the exact distress tolerance we were just talking about, the patience to tolerate slow progress.
So where in your life are you currently pursuing comfort and control when what's really called for is leaning into a little discomfort?
We've covered a lot of philosophical ground today.
We really have. We've looked at the toxicity of the efficiency trap, the liberating reality of finitude, the illusion of controlling the future, and the power of patience.
Let's synthesize this. Let's look at the mechanisms of how to actually build a meaningful life based on these sources.
Yeah, let's contrast the busy life with the meaningful life, because the differences are stark. The busy life is driven by the anxiety of control.
It treats time as a resource to be hoarded.
Exactly. It isolates you for the sake of hyper-efficiency and keeps you constantly living in the imagined future. But the meaningful life, on the other hand, embraces limits.
It freely shares time with others to build community and focuses entirely on being present right now.
To operationalize this, Burkeman provides practical tools. Let's map these into a step-by-step daily routine so everyone listening can start putting this into practice immediately.
Sounds good.
Let's start with the morning. First thing, you begin with that closed to-do list we talked about, a hard maximum of 10 items.
And critically, establish predetermined time boundaries for your work. Decide in advance what time you will stop working and honor it.
Because if you don't,
Parkinson's law takes over, where work simply expands to fill whatever time is available.
right. Then, as you move into the midday, tackle your attention. Embrace boring, single-purpose technology.
One of the best mechanisms for this is switching your smartphone screen to grayscale.
Which sounds minor, but it's huge.
It completely breaks the dopamine loop. It removes the intermittent variable rewards, those shiny red notification badges that make the device act like a slot machine.
Also, seek out novelty in the mundane. Time speeds up as we age because we rely on autopilot routines.
Instead of trying to slow time down by blowing up your life and moving to a new country, find novelty by paying deeper attention to your immediate surroundings,
Like taking a slightly different walking route.
or actually looking at the architecture of the buildings you pass.
Yeah. And what about our interactions with other people?
The sources suggest being a researcher in your relationship.
Or a researcher.
Yeah. When you are stuck in a slow, boring, or challenging conversation, your instinct is usually to escape. Instead, shift your brain into curiosity mode. Ask yourself, who is this deeply complex human being I am actually with?
Oh, I like that. It shifts you from impatience to presence.
And while you're interacting, practice instantaneous generosity. If you have the impulse to give a compliment, send an encouraging text or make a small donation. Do not put it on a to-do list for later.
Because the friction of the list means you'll likely never do it.
Act on the generous impulse immediately.
Finally, the evening. Keep a done list. This reverses a major psychological trap.
Because we usually spend our evenings staring in despair at the massive open list of what's left to do.
Right. Instead, start a list empty in the morning and fill it up with what you actually accomplished, no matter how small. Focus on the gain, not the gap.
And end your day by practicing the do-nothing meditation.
Do nothing.
Set a timer for just 5 minutes. Sit in a chair and actively stop trying to do anything.
So it's not like regular meditation.
No, this is mindfulness. Don't focus on your breath. Don't try to clear your mind. Every time you notice yourself doing something, planning, judging, analyzing, just stop.
Wow, that sounds hard.
It is. The mechanism here is distress tolerance. It trains your brain to bear the uncomfortable itch of wanting to be productive without scratching it.
This entire deep dive has been such a massive paradigm shift. As we wrap up, I want to remind you, the listener, of a wonderful secret the sources revealed.
Everyone is just winging it.
Exactly. There is no magical point in the future where you finally figure it all out, where you feel totally optimized and in control. And that realization should be a massive, shoulders-dropping relief.
To capture the essence of this philosophy, think of the medieval stonemasons who built the great cathedrals of Europe.
Oh, this is a great analogy.
They spent their entire lives carving a few bricks and placing them in a wall, fully knowing they would never live long enough to see the cathedral completed.
But the cathedral was still worth building.
We are all adding a few imperfect bricks to a cathedral whose completion we know we'll never see. That's all we can do. So, knowing you only have about 4,000 weeks, what is the next most necessary thing you need to do today?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Before you rush off to the next task on your conveyor belt, we invite you to just take a breath. Don't try to master this moment. Just exist the time you have right now. After all, you don't have 4,000 weeks. You are 4,000 weeks.